Getting your foot into the housing market just got a little harder because the bar to qualify for mortgages just got higher. The Bank of Canada raised its 5-year mortgage rate from 5.14% to 5.34%. That's the rate used in stress tests. Home buyers with less than a 20% down payment seeking an insured mortgage must qualify at that rate. It's gone up 5 times since last May when it stood at 4.64%. RateHub says this increase will put pressure on first-time home buyers who are the most financially strained Canadians entering the housing market. The central bank's rate is based on a survey of conventional 5-year rates available at the big banks. All 6 of the country's biggest raised their posted fixed-rate mortgage rates over the past few weeks. So that's one type of buyer. But what about the well-heeled looking for luxury homes? Well, we're witnessing a cool down in the country's 2 largest markets. The latest numbers come from Royal LePage. To qualify under its formula, Greater Toronto Area detached home needs to be more than $3 million. Sales fell 68% compared to last year, but prices remained relatively flat. In Vancouver, it's over $4.6 million for a detached home. Sales there dropped 38%, yet prices rose around 5%. Joining us now to talk about this, Phil Soper, president of Royal LePage. So that's one really interesting part of the story. And I always say the real estate industry, the real estate market tells us a story. What does that part tell us about the broader market?
Well, the luxury market is the most discretionary real estate market. In your introduction, when you're talking about the higher barrier for first-time home buyers, for many of them, it's necessity. It's either rental or buying in our rental markets are so tight. But when you get to the difference between a $4 million and a $6 million home, you're talking a discretionary purchase.
For sure.
And when there's government intervention, when there's a feeling that markets are softening, it's easier for buyers to step to the sidelines. And that's clear what's happened in our big cities.
Because the volumes are that in Toronto, it's down 68%, but the prices remain relatively flat.
Yes.
What does that tell us?
It's volume changes are a leading indicator. So it takes about 6 months to even a year for a drop or a rise in the volume of demand to translate into prices. And the reason why is because sellers hang on to their expectations of value. They grip it and they don't let go.
I know that feeling.
And buyers, their expectations change immediately. So they say, like right now, I want to change. So something of an impasse opens up, volumes drop, and they over the course of a few months, they reach an agreement, buyers and sellers, and they decide on the new value.
And so are we going through that sort of transitionary phase right now as we see volumes drop enormously, but prices actually going up in Vancouver and staying flat in Toronto?
So if you look at Vancouver, for example, year over year, first quarter to first quarter, luxury homes are up about 5%. Our forecast for this time next year is -3.
Really?
So essentially, call it in terms
flat.
of trend, an 8% different though, from rising by 5.
Sure, yeah.
But if you go back a year ago, they were up 25%. So it's a much more sane market this year. Last year was insane.
Last year we had like 33% price gains. That was everybody knew or should have known that was not going to be sustainable.
Yeah. And a crisis in supply. There was so little homes for sale in Vancouver and Toronto. It really was a challenge for anyone who wanted to get in the market.
How much of the luxury market, especially I'm thinking of people that bought their houses a long time ago that might have been higher end houses but have just soared in value since, are boomers that are now going to start looking to downsize? And is there going to be an overabundance of supply as that generation looks to move more into condos or whatever?
Good question. We expected, and futurists predicted, that call it the McMansion set would be exiting their homes 5 and even 10 years ago, and it wasn't happening. And our studies showed it was for a lot of reasons, but number one was because the kids weren't leaving. So the millennial generation hung around at about twice the rate in their 20s at home to the baby boomers when they were that age. But they're leaving. And whether they're renting or buying, they're finally leaving the family home. And so we're seeing a rise in condominium luxury condominium prices across the country, not just in Toronto downtown, but Saskatoon suburbs. So, and it's not a price-driven thing, it's a lifestyle change. So yeah, we are gonna have some movement. Now in our big cities, we don't have enough detached homes to meet the demand. So nobody's talking about oversupply. anywhere other than, say, Atlantic Canada or something where demographically the population growth isn't as high.
Because in Vancouver, you're hemmed in by mountains and ocean. In Toronto, you're hemmed in by suburbs. We're not adding those single-family homes. That's a pretty fixed number of houses.
It's one of the things I worry about is the governments of BC and Ontario and the federal government. They basically, the problem's solved because prices are. The problem is not solved. If you look at population growth, migration patterns, we're back into a housing crisis in less than 18 months.
Oh my. Well, we'll get you back before then, but certainly then. Nice to see you, Phil. Thanks for doing this. Phil Soper, president of Royal LePage.